So the last couple days have been single-handedly the scariest of my entire existence.
Take a picture so I can see how bad I look.
So my brother, Rebecca, and I were all hanging out. It was just a typical night over at the homestead.
Me, him, and Dakota were sitting around wrestling, and I actually put on Love Fool by the Cardigans because it was in, like, the recommended videos on the side of YouTube, and I love that song.
We were listening to music and telling stories and talking about places we'd like to travel to and, goals and aspirations. Just a typical night. We do this all the time. We'll just crowd around the room that I'm in right now and we'll just talk about stuff freeform style.
And I was a little drunk and I was like dancing, we're having a good time, whatever. So I put that song on because I love it so much.
So the night carries on and my brother is talking about his younger days, his middle school and high school days specifically. Talking about how he used to be a wrestler. And anybody that doesn't know, my brother is an insanely athletic individual. He's good at every sport he's ever tried to do in his life. He can just pick it up and do it.
Like, the only reason I recall even putting that song on, or that it was the song playing when this happened, is because when we got back from the hospital, like, the YouTube was still up that we were listening to, like, the 2 days before.
Somewhere during this conversation, we started talking about how when Rebecca and I are playfully wrestling, which we do a lot of the time, she always does the worst thing possible, which is fall to her back. It's like, in wrestling specifically, it's like the worst thing you can possibly do is fall on your back. So he was trying to show her, look, you got to do this when you get into your lockup stance. You don't fall backwards, you push in. And when he did that, Rebecca's ass hit my window. And it was weird because the window shattered, but it didn't shatter outward at all. Like, there was no glass on the floor. It all shattered inward into the windowsill. It was one of those moments that was like, oh, well, that sucks. But big deal. It's just a fucking window. We'll worry about it tomorrow. This story's really hard for me to tell. So Rebecca thinks that she has it figured out now. She knows what to do when you're in the grappling stance, how to break out of it. So we get the idea that we'll lock up and she'll do her thing.
And so much of this is just like, oh, it's just a huge blur. Like, my sense of time and how long things took is all fucked up.
So we go to lock up or whatever, and she starts to fall back again. And we're like, no, don't do that. And so we do this 2 or 3 times, and she's starting to get it. From a fly on the walls perspective, at this moment, everything was really funny. So we're back and we're grappling. And Rebecca is breaking my hold. She's doing really well. So my response to that is I'm going to switch it up and see how she responds to this. So I go to lift her up into like a wrestling fireman's carry type of slam. You pick them up and then put them down on their stomach. And somewhere in between me picking her up and putting her on her stomach, her foot went right in to the glass.
I don't know if that's probably not going to be in frame. That like the little soft part of your ankle, like, how if you look at the side of your ankle, there's that hard bone that juts out, and then there's the back of your heel. There's like that little space of soft skin between that there's really nothing protecting it. The shard of glass went straight into that.
So as the Cardigan's Love Fool plays in the background, her foot is sliced open, and she's like, whoa, hold on. And I look over, and her foot is seriously just gushing blood.
And it was such a clean cut, like it hit it so like precisely that I didn't even feel any pain.
Like, I don't mean just like a little stream, I mean it's pouring like a goddamn faucet.
Really, literally the only reason I knew that my foot got cut on the glass was because I heard the glass shatter more.
So we run to the bathroom, and I want to see how deep the cut is, because I'm thinking she just scraped her foot.
Yeah, I mean, instantly we looked down, and I could tell just by how it was bleeding, and I was drunk, so my blood was even thinner than usual, and it was just fucking pouring out.
And I go to wipe the blood off of the cut, and the second I wipe the blood, more is just there instantly. Like, I'm talking like within a split millisecond, the wound completely refilled.
You wiped it?
Yeah.
So this was kind of like my worst fucking nightmare. Like, I don't even really remember, like, I cut my foot, looked down, and instantly I was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And my first thought was, I need a tourniquet. Like, I need something to tie around my ankle, like, really tight.
So it becomes incredibly apparent super fast that she's got to go to the hospital. Like, this is a serious cut.
And we ran to the bathroom, and I don't know if I ran to the bathroom or if Cody carried me. I don't know. Well, we went to the bathroom. I put my foot up in the sink. The whole sink filled with blood. And Cody tried to wrap like the bath towel around it, and I was like, that's not gonna work. Like, it's not thin enough. Like, I can't pull it tight enough. Like, I need something different. So he brought me like one of his old tank tops, and I like tied it in a knot and tried to pull it tight, but like I really couldn't get it that tight, and my foot was still pouring out blood, so it obviously wasn't tight enough, but it was like all I could do at the time. And that whole process took like, I don't know, like 20 seconds, and then we ran back into the living room, and we were like, Dakota, we have to go to the hospital right now. So I like ran outside, and my hands and shit were already covered in blood.
My brother's in the driver's seat, I'm riding shotgun, and Rebecca is sitting in back with her foot propped in the air like this and a homemade tourniquet made out of an old wife beater I had strapped against her leg, and her foot's up like this. I am straight up panicking. Like, I am freaking out because I look back and literally it looks like she got shot in the stomach or something. You know that scene in Pulp Fiction where John Travolta accidentally shoots that guy and the whole back seat of the car is just like covered in blood? That's what this moment reminded me of.
But like Cody said, the whole time I was in the back seat of the car, I was like just in holy shit, I have to save my own life mode kind of, because I am so squeamish, and internally I was freaking out, but like in my head I was like, you better pull this fucking tourniquet tight, and you better hold your ankle as high as you possibly can to stop the blood from going to your foot. Like, it was weird. Like, I was so out of my mind, but doing everything that I needed to be doing at the same time.
So my brother is flying down Main Street, getting my car to a speed that I didn't even know it was capable of getting to. Like, we're going down Main Street at like 110 miles an hour. There's not a single car on the road besides ours, which I am incredibly thankful for, because if we would have got stuck behind someone or, God forbid, wrecked the car, I don't know what we would have done.
But then, as we were in the car, I had my ankle like right in front of my face, up in the air, and I was holding the tourniquet with this hand, and I was holding the bottom of my ankle with this hand. And despite the tourniquet, the blood was still pouring up and like was just running down my arm. Like, my entire arm was coated in blood, and every second there was just more blood pouring down. My whole lap and like stomach and legs were covered in blood. Like, that's where the majority of the blood was.
But we get to the hospital in like 1 minute flat, like maybe 2 minutes at the most. We ran every stop sign, every stoplight.
Wait, you guys ran every light?
Yes. And we pull into the emergency room's parking lot, jump out. I pick Rebecca up and run into the emergency room, and they send us back to, you know, where the doctor is going to be.
But then when you see the footage of like all the blood that's in the car, like, that's the least of it. Because most of it soaked into my clothes or was on my arm or on my pants, and the blood that he's going to show you in the car was just like the excess that ran off my elbow or like my lap.
At this point, I am literally covered in her blood, like head to toe, drenched in her blood. I didn't have any shoes on, my feet were covered in her blood. I looked back and I noticed that there was a trail from where the car was into the room that I had taken her in that was just like a scavenger trail of her blood. The doctors come in the room and we basically just re-explain this story, and they tie a tourniquet on Rebecca's leg to stop the bleeding, and then they just disappear.
They were wrestling. Her foot went to the fucking window. Now we're here.
Oh my god.
She being dumb.
I will beat your fucking ass with my foot numb.
No, you won't. You're gonna sit there and lay down.
Hey,
Stop.
hey, sit back.
Sit back.
Like, it felt like they were gone for 5 hours. Like, I'm not kidding. They were gone for so long.
And then when we got to the hospital, Cody came around, picked me up, ran me into the hospital, straight into the ER. There was like just a trail of blood following us. He put me in the bed. Instantly, like, the nurses and doctors were telling Cody that he had to sit down in the bed because I thought he was going to pass out, because he was freaking out because of the state I was in.
She's just sitting there with a tourniquet on, and it's hurting more and more and more. When the doctor comes in and he's like, look, there's nothing we can do for her here because she cut a major vein in her leg. She's got to go to a specialist for this, and we don't have one on board. The nearest one is 90 miles north in Iowa City. So we're going to get an ambulance here, and she's going to have to go.
And they put a real tourniquet on me, which stopped the bleeding, but holy shit, did it hurt.
They needed her information at the front desk, and I'm the only one that had that kind of information, so I went out there to do it. And this is how messed up I was in this moment, is I've seen her first and last name more than probably I've seen any other human beings, because we spent years just communicating on Snapchat together. And her full name always popped up when she sent me a snap. So I've seen it seriously no fewer than 2,000 times, at least. And I'm sitting there in the office trying to give her information, and I couldn't remember if her last name was spelled with an A or an E. Like, I totally blanked, and that part of my brain was completely blocked off. I had no access to it. I'm like, how the fuck do you spell her name? How do you spell her name? I was completely useless.
It hurt so bad. Like, I wasn't even, like, really anticipating it. Like, to me, the whole way to the hospital, I was like, just gotta get this tourniquet. When I get the tourniquet, it'll be fine. When I got that tourniquet on, it was, like, the most pain. And it just got worse the longer the tourniquet was on. And I ended up having the tourniquet on for, like, 4 hours.
Once we find out that the ambulance is on its way, my new goal is to see if I can get in this damn ambulance with her, because I don't want her driving all the way to Iowa City by herself, because that shit's scary. Like, I couldn't even imagine how scary that must have been for her, because it was absolutely fucking terrifying for me. Like, it didn't even happen to me, and I feel traumatized.
And at this point, I still, like, I was holding my composure. Cody was really upset, and he kept saying it was his fault. And I was trying to, like, calm him down, and I was trying to, like, be conscious of, like, breathing in and breathing out, because I didn't want to hyperventilate, because I knew that would just make it worse. So for the time, most of the time in that first hospital, like, I was crying when they put my IVs and stuff in, you know, but I was still kind of, like, cracking jokes, which is weird. I was just having all these weird reactions. Like, I would be laughing and crying, and then the next second the tourniquet would hurt really bad, and I would be, like, you know, kind of moaning in pain about that. It was just like it's all such a blur. Like, there's so many feelings and emotions and, like, expressions of those emotions all in one setting.
So, like, this goes well and beyond just how tough of a human being she is, because the moment, if this situation were reversed and it was me that sliced my foot on the window, which, by the way, I wish I could go back and make it that way. If it had to be one of us, I sure as shit wished that I would have been the one going through this. But I would have been panicking immediately. She held her shit together up until the point that the ambulance got there.
I really didn't start to lose my shit until the ambulance came. I mean, they told me that I was gonna be transported in an ambulance, but I don't remember if I was awake the whole time or if I was in and out, but I don't even remember being put on the stretcher. I don't remember being strapped in. I don't remember being put in the ambulance. I don't remember saying bye to Cody and Dakota.
But of course, the doctors and the nurses and the you know, everyone up front is like, there's no way that you can get on an ambulance with her, because A, you guys aren't married, B, she's over 18, and C, the ambulance is small. There's no room for you, even if you wanted to. And I'm like, please, just let me get on the goddamn ambulance with her. Please. And they're like, no, absolutely not. No, just go sit back with her, and we're going to give you the address to the hospital that she's going to go to in Iowa City, and you can follow the ambulance there if you choose to. So I go back defeated, and I'm sitting there, and I look out, and I see the ambulance pull in, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got one last chance to do this. Because they told me that I couldn't get on the ambulance with her unless we were married. So all I gotta do, in my mind, is go convince the ambulance driver that we're married. So I run out there, and I'm like, look, like, we just got married a few days ago. It's not in paper yet, but we're totally married. Can I please, please, please get in this goddamn ambulance with you guys? Please. And of course, he's like, no. Like, he didn't buy it for a second. Like, I thought I was fairly convincing, but apparently I wasn't, because he was straight up like, not a chance, dude. You're not getting on.
I just remember waking up in the ambulance, and at this point, they had given me morphine and Ativan, but, like, they didn't do anything, because when I was in the ambulance, that was the absolute worst pain that I think I felt the whole night. And I had already been pumped with morphine and shot up with Ativan, and it was the most panicked that I was the whole time, and it was the most in pain I was the whole time. And I remember I was just getting delusional at that point. Like, I kept waking up, and the guy in the back of the ambulance, I was like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And he kept being like, no, like, we still have, like, a while to go. And I kept trying to turn my whole body around and move my leg, because the more still that it sat with the tourniquet on it, the worse it burned. So I was just trying to move it in any way to, like, relieve the pain.
So I wasn't going to argue with him, because she needed some goddamn treatment, and literally we were there for 3 hours at this point, and all that happened was they gave her some morphine and wrapped the tourniquet on her leg.
We weren't there for 3 hours.
Yes, we were. We got there at 2. The ambulance didn't take off until almost 4:30, so 2.5 hours. So anyway, at this point, I'm freaking out, because my brother and I are riding solo to Iowa City, 90 miles away from the hospital that we're presently at.
But I was strapped down, and then he kept yelling at me because I had to stay still. And I, like, remember there being times where, like, I was kind of conscious but also unconscious. Like, my eyes weren't open, but I was, like, aware of the situation. But I was, like, trying to, like, talk to Cody or Dakota, or, like, call for Cody or something, and neither of them were there. Like, I was just losing my mind.
And I'm just running through every possible scenario in my head. Every bad thing that could potentially happen. Like, I'm worried we're going to get to Iowa City and they're going to say she has to have her fucking leg amputated. Or, worse than that even, we messed up in the procedure and she bled out on the table. Like, I was fully, like, trying to prepare myself for the possibility that something terrible was going to happen.
I don't remember being taken out of the ambulance. I don't remember being taken into the hospital. All I remember is waking up on a different hospital bed in a different hospital, surrounded by all these people, and my leg was still burning, and I was crying, and I was begging them to take the tourniquet off of me, even though they hadn't stabilized the wound at all.
They must have flew there, because we sure as shit did. But by the time we got to the hospital, her procedure was already done. She was stitched up, and we walked into the room that they were in, and she's just sitting there with, like, a half smile on her face, and she's like, "Hey guys."
I remember this one doctor specifically, like, I was just, like, crying, and I was, like, in agony, and in a split second I looked towards, like, the doorway of the room, and there were all these people swirling around me, and I saw this one doctor, and we kind of made eye contact as all this shit was happening to me, and I think he could just see, like, the pain in my face, and he just kind of gave me one of, like, these looks, like.
And I can't tell you how goddamn happy I was to see her not only there, but she was comfortable.
But yeah, basically the whole time they were operating on my foot, they had to, like, cauterize the artery, because the shard of glass went through an artery that was, like, a tributary to a major artery, like a bigger artery, and then it also went through a vein. So they had to cauterize the artery and then reconnect the vein and then stitch the wound up.
You know what I mean? Like, she wasn't in the same kind of insane pain that she was in prior to. She had her foot still. She was alive and animated.
And I remember them shooting, like, the numbing agent inside the cut to do the stitches, and that hurt like a bitch. And it's like, I don't even know, like, what was going on, because, like, I had morphine, I'd had Ativan, and when I got to the second hospital, And the tourniquet had been on for like 3 hours at that point, and I was still in so much pain. They gave me fentanyl.
I was so fucking thankful. But the adrenaline was still pumping through me, and when I said hi back to her, I immediately felt like I was going to faint. So like there was a step stool by the operating table, and I just had to sit in it for a second because I was so overwhelmed by the whole damn thing.
That just goes to show how much fucking pain and how scared and anxious I guess I was. And so basically they stitched it up, they got ready. By the time Cody and Dakota got there, the fentanyl had kicked in, thank God. They had taken the tourniquet off my leg. I wasn't bleeding anymore, and it was over. And I was like real high on fentanyl when they walked in, and I felt no pain. Like, that shit was good. Looking back on it, I wish they didn't give it to me, because those kind of drugs like freak me out. And especially because like it felt so nice in the time being that, like, you know, like those really addictive drugs I just like don't really want anything to do with.
And we got discharged, and we came home and found the remains of the mess that, you know, her bloody body left behind. Like, my floor was covered in blood, the sink's covered in blood, windows still shattered, my car's covered in blood, my brother's car somehow is covered in blood, the stairs leading up to my house covered in blood, towels covered in blood, my guitar somehow covered in blood.
And we were only in here for a minute.
Yeah. We might have been in the house post-cut for maybe 60 seconds.
And yeah, and then I sat in the hospital for 2 days, and now I can barely take 10 steps without having to sit down and, like, you know, regulate my pulse, because anything, like just standing up or sitting down or, like, walking down the hall to go to the bathroom or getting in and out of bed makes my heart race, because I lost so much blood that, like, my body is just kind of useless right now.
So I'm trying my best to convince her to just stay put. And that's kind of part of the reason why we're making this video now as opposed to a few days from now, because I figured this was one way that I could get her to sit still for 10 or 15 minutes while we do this.
Sitting still all day.
Yes, but you know as well as I do, you've been trying to get up.
But the cut itself, it seems to be doing well. It's more so like the fatigue that's killing me, because I literally can't do anything but lay down. The only times I've gotten up, I got up like once to fuck with you, and I only took like 10 steps.
10 steps too many.
Yeah, it was a lot. It made me tired.
It really shows you the fragility of life. Because in literally less than a second, everything can go from peaceful and perfect and wonderful and jolly to straight up tragedy. And it was just such a freak occurrence. Like, her foot could have landed literally anywhere else on that wall, and that wouldn't have happened.
Shit was fucking crazy. So yeah, I was in the hospital for about 2 days, and now I'm here. And I guess we'll just take it a day at a time. I don't really know how long it's going to take for me to get back to normal, but we'll see. Cody! Cody! I'm done! Also, I keep telling Cody that I want a puppy. Like, there's nothing more than I want right now, since I can't move, to, like, hold a little baby animal. Like, I don't care if it's, like, a hamster or, like, a dog or a cat. I just want to, like, I want to cuddle with something, but he's allergic to cats, and he says we can't get a dog.
I'm a borderline pussy a lot of the time, and I can't even begin to imagine how traumatizing this experience must have been for her, because I feel personally traumatized as well. Like, there is nothing more stressful and painful than seeing someone you care about just covered in blood, and you pick them up and you're covered in their life force. You know what I mean? Like, you are covered in their blood. And there was nothing that I could do to change it. There was nothing I could do to stop her from bleeding. There was nothing I could do to stop her from the pain that she was in. It was completely up to fate and the people surrounding her, and I just had to put all my faith in these strangers that they weren't gonna fuck up, and they didn't, thankfully. But to just like to stare fate in the eyes like that, it's something else. I don't think I've ever been so terrified in my entire existence and for such a long period of time. Because even once the procedure was over and we were in the hospital room and everything seemed to be okay, we were still in a goddamn hospital room. You know? Like, I was still waiting for something to fuck up, for something to go wrong. And I don't know if I've had a whole lot of time to really, like, digest the experience. But I'm really glad that, you know, she's all right. And I'm counting my blessings for sure, because I don't know what the fuck I would have done if something would have happened to her. You know what I mean? Like, how could I have lived with myself beyond that? Even though it was a freak accident, even though it wasn't anything that was intentionally done, there was no maliciousness, how the fuck could I live with myself if something happened to her that left her in like a permanent different state? Luckily, I don't have to find that out, because she's sitting right behind me, and though weak, she's herself, you know. She's still good with the zingers. She's still good with, you know, the snarkiness and the things that I have come to enjoy about her the most. And that's pretty much it. I'm making this video because of the reasons I mentioned earlier, but also because I don't really know how to process things unless I make shit about them. And this seems like something I'm going to have to process for a long time. So retelling it might be beneficial in some capacity. I don't know.